Shabbat Shalom. And I will add my welcome to the Kogans, Morenu Harav. It's good to be with you again, and I know it's not only the beauty of cottage country that brings you back each summer, it's also the friendships that you have maintained for decades now, from when you were a student here in Toronto. In fact, soon we'll mark the yahrzeit for Marilyn Farber, Aleha Shalom. So this is really a day celebrating generations of rabbis, and that's part of what we do here at Holy Blossom Temple, is to train up new rabbis and then to send them off to the far corners of the world to make their mark and to expand their reach. So it is my special pleasure to welcome back my colleague, Rabbi Jordan Helfman, who served as the assistant and then associate rabbi here at Holy Blossom Temple for more than 7 years. I know many of you remember him. You remember his smarts. You remember his kindness. You remember his hard work and his good humor. And I will add a personal thanks, because he was really my right hand for many years of challenge. We had the construction project underway. We had the pandemic underway. So those were not easy times for Holy Blossom Temple, and really you helped to steer us through. So thank you for your lasting gifts. And I'm proud to report back to you that we're on the other side. Thank God. So Rabbi Helfman has gone on, in the words of our Haftarah, he has kindled his own fire. He has gone on to set torches alight so that others might walk by the blaze of his fire, by the torches that he lights. Rabbi Jordan Helfman is the senior rabbi of Oaks Lane Reform Synagogue on the edge of northeast London towards Essex. He is currently the vice chair of the Assembly of Reform Rabbis and Cantors, and he is the co-vice chair of Artseinu Olami, the Zionist arm of the global reform movement. And we're so lucky that his partner, Dr. Gemma Helfman, founded a camp here in Toronto, a special camp for special kids. And it's that camp that brings the whole Helfman family back to Toronto each summer. So welcome back to Toby and Molly and Henriette and Dove. I think each one of you has doubled in size since you lived here in Toronto. Now, when Rabbi Helfman and I were talking about what he might address this morning, he had a number of ideas, and what we came to was something that I first called competitive suffering. And then I scaled it back to comparative suffering. So you'll be the judge. Is he bringing competitive edge to the suffering of British and Canadian Jewry, or is it only comparative? I am sure he'll bring great insights from Jewish life over the ocean, and I hope he'll also bring a bit of a nechemta and a bright light. Welcome back to this bima, Rabbi Helfman.
First, of course, thank you to my teacher and mentor through the construction project, right? It's easy to be sitting in the passenger seat when you have such a driver in moving this congregation forward. Kill the Jews. Everyone say it now, kill the Jews. This was the chant led by a British acting troupe at Bloor Collegiate here in Toronto, which led to the dismissal of the principal around 2014 when I first arrived in the city. The principal, the head teacher, British, was surprised at the reaction from the community. But this production went over very well back home. And let me tell you, it does. Death to the IDF over the sound system in Glastonbury and broadcast around the world by the BBC. A month ago, I flew to Portugal to officiate at a wedding of a Toronto couple seeking a European destination. It was a lovely affair, but beyond the joy of the couple, there was one topic of conversation: how bad things are right now for the Jews of Toronto. I was truly shocked to hear how things are here through their eyes, in a city I knew as valuing multiculturalism. When I left, we had iftars with the Interfaith Dialogue Institute, a special alma for those who perished at the residential schools, said with sage and sweetgrass on Sukkot, a yearly B'nai Mitzvah trip to Imdadul Islamic Center, and because of Rabbi Splansky's bridge building, through the tough moments of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, we were able to show what was in our hearts through action. I stood outside of Imdadul in a human shield, linking hands with some of you here, and they stood around this congregation, protecting us, mutually helping secure our places as part of the Canadian mosaic. And now, today in this country, I hear that infants, weeks after they are born, are put on the wait list again for Jewish schools. The Chabad nurseries are full in areas like St. Clair West, where there's no reform option. And if you can't afford Jewish schools, the only answer for many is private. Suddenly, Rabbi, to be a Jew in Toronto costs $20,000 more per year per child. The numbers in the recent report of anti-Semitism in Ontario schools bears out these stories, with so many incidents taking place without consequence in TDSB schools. And of course, the protests, and I'd continue in detail, but many of you have the lived experience, and I have Rabbi Marmer's voice in my ear. I thought everything was fine in the world till I came to shul this morning. I'm no scholar of anti-Semitism. In fact, I do try to focus on the joy and not the oi of Jewish life. But comparative suffering, there is a different texture here to what's happening in the United Kingdom. The head teacher at Bloor Collegiate came from a culture where I can see how that school production would be okay. Britain is a place of long-established institutions, of traditions, school uniforms, and elaborate coronations. It is a Christian country. Bishops have their rightful place in the House of Lords. In 1689, Parliament officially recognized the religious rights of nonconformists. But the Church of England is Britain's established church. Britain is not a country where we lie to children and tell to them, if you work hard enough, you can be anything. No, inherited wealth and ancient land titles give immense privilege still. And this is the fact we celebrate occasionally through neighborhood street parades and neighborhood parties. UK Jews are not part of a mosaic, but rather are a jewel in the crown, a unique, interesting, ancient people to celebrate and honor. Listen to this line from the recent Board of Deputies report on anti-Semitism in the UK. What's the complaint? The Jewish community in our country, I was going to do a British accent, but I just can't. It's offensive, I'm sorry. The Jewish community in our country increasingly feels that it is being tolerated rather than being respected. We are being tolerated and not respected. Imagine your anti-Semitism here is newer and less refined than ours. It still has its sharp edges. And as I've heard accused around this week's tiff around TIFF, there's maybe a lack of moral clarity from the center and the common Canadian. Which is worse? Loud, protesting, liberal social justice warriors challenging the Jewish right to self-determination in every forum and associating Jewish heritage with white fascist oppressors, or a deeply ingrained prejudice just sitting there underneath the surface. Does anyone here know the difference between a Jewish pessimist and a Jewish optimist? Do you know? The pessimist says, things are terrible. They're as bad as they could ever be. They can never get worse. And the optimist, don't worry. They can always get worse. Right? What is different, I think, is how we deal as a community with these issues in the UK. The ethos is to take slow, measured steps and move away from extremism towards the middle. Palestine Action is now a prescribed terror group because of the damage they have done to the Crown. And I sit in quarterly police meetings with the Metropolitan Police, with the leaders of my local Palestine Solidarity, Redbridge, imams and lay leaders at local places of worship. We sit and they express their frustration and say, we need a legal outlet for our angry youth. We need forums and places they can express their anger legally. Being rightfully horrified at the situation in Gaza as they see it reported to them in the news. And I get it. And we sit around the table and express how we feel in our own communities, how vulnerable we feel. And the protest marches don't come close to and walk past our places of worship, but within certain boundaries, they're allowed and go ahead. We discuss the governing concept of community cohesion. Community cohesion. That the neighborhood, getting to know people on a personal level, takes priority. Over and above the great social justice causes. It's the idea that men, women, all people can dwell together in peace. This is a Jewish concept as well. In the same place in the Mishnah, it introduces the term mipnei tikkun olam. It also introduces a separate concept of neighborliness, mipnei darchei shalom. We compromise for the paths of peace. There is still graffiti. There are still incidents. But in my still very Jewish and incredibly diverse neighborhood of London, in this coming year, our students are more and more likely to attend their local state school and not the opposite way around. A few times on Saturdays, I walk out of the synagogue with my kippah still on my head, walking by protesters with flags as they're heading to the tube into central London. And they don't care that I'm there. In their minds, they're protesting Israel, not us, their Jewish neighbors. It's hard to bifurcate our own identities, but their ability to do so is a gift that we should treasure. We're a people who dwells alone, but also, I pray, a people who journeys alongside with friends, even as God tests what's in our hearts. In this week's parashah, we find the words, "V'zacharta et kol haderech asher holichecha, leman anotecha v'nasotecha, ledat et asher bilvavecha." Remember the long way God has made you travel, to test you by hardships, and to know what is truly in your hearts. David Kaufman, former bar mitzvah boy here at HBT, and now a leading scholar discussing what it means to be a Canadian Jew, recently pointed out that Canadian Jews are still getting mortgages and jobs, are still being accepted to universities, are still getting fair treatment in courts and on the playing fields, and life goes on. But the social psychology has shifted. The feeling of being safe and accepted, of solidarity, and remember that imdal-dual relationship, of our place in shared marginalized experience as a minority is gone. Our place in the mosaic of Canada is shifting, and we feel that which held us since the 80s and before resettling beneath our feet. The test is upon us, and God wants to know, will we choose a life as a light to the nations, or will we choose a life in self-imposed ghettos? Walking through the building on Wednesday, my children asked me, "Dad, why is there a tower?" Honestly, for the 8 years I worked here, I never really questioned. Of course, there's, But for the past 4 years, I've worked in a synagogue, can you believe it or not, without a tower. It reminded me not of the unstated purpose to show that we had made it into the family of religions here in Canada, but the purpose written in the original dedication guide before it became Jacob Hertzman's Tower, to serve as a lighthouse, a light of ethics for the souls driving up and down Bathurst Street. I beg you, please don't let the siege mentality take over. It is great for our Jewish schools, our Jewish institutions, expanding here into this building as well, I hear. But this is not how we do our best work as Jews in society. What should we be saying? Save the Jews, save the Jews. But how? What is in our hearts? Does this people still have it in us to uphold our part of the covenant? Or do we let ourselves fall into despair, anger, and fear? This is hard work even amongst other Jews. My colleagues, the co-leads of progressive Judaism in the United Kingdom, were removed from the Downing Street stage at a hostage rally for daring to say the words said at hostage rallies all around Israel, that the Palestinian people have a right to self-determination, and that negotiations are important to bring the hostages home, that we must do all we can do to bring them home. For this, they were booed, their mics were cut, and they were walked from the stage by individuals wearing big yellow "Stop the Hate" shirts at a hostage rally. I'm not going to talk about the merits of negotiation versus military might in returning the hostages, but rather I want to say this clearly. God requires moral courage from us, that we show we can rise above our base desires of revenge and hate. so we can do the mitzvah of Pidyon Shvuim, to bring them home. Moral courage. It's hard to sit in meetings with people who are diametrically opposed to my work in helping build any sort of Jewish state, even if it's a more just one. But it's through those meetings that they see, as Shylock says in his supervillain soliloquy, that I too bleed. And it means that our neighborhood is one where we don't allow bad behavior by either side. You already know that it's a hard time to be a Jew, let alone a Jewish leader. And your clergy here are doing a fantastic job of leading with moral courage and building bridges. Last night I heard how Rabbi Splansky was the first Jew on Day One Christian radio show talking about the pain of being Jewish past the 7th of October. The art and music of this community are beacons to the city. The work is hard, and they are doing it. God asks that we not sit in comparative suffering, but rather to take action, to make a billion individual choices to conquer our impulses, to be in covenant. This is what it means to be a person of faith, to be a Jew. To be a Jew means to build bridges, not walls, to spread light and not sit in darkness. It means to go into deeply uncomfortable spaces, listening, humanizing, respecting, and God willing, with enough work, being respected. You have a mosaic. It's new, and maybe time will tell. It's better than being a jewel in the crown. But it is more exposed. In some ways, you are being trodden upon on this moment, and it isn't nice. But your mosaic, unlike that crown, is full of potential. It can be a place where life blossoms and Jewish values take root. This moment in Jewish time demands that again the eternal people passes its test. And we will. Through our actions, our refusal to back down from those communal spaces, and most of all, through our acts of loving kindness, hand will again grasp hand. And collectively, with the rest of this beautiful, beautiful mosaic, we will endure as Jews. May this be God's will. Amen. Amen.